Celtic are back at Hampden tomorrow night, Saturday, for the League Cup semi-final against Aberdeen. And for Brendan Rodgers, it's the 13th time he's gone to the National Stadium as Celtic manager. Quite the record. This is Tino with the countdown to kick-off, joined here by Brydo. Brydo, how much are you looking forward to this one?
Oh, buzzing, mate, to be honest. Cup games and then semi-finals at Hampden, finals at Hampden. We should never take them for granted. And the fact that Aberdeen have more than got their act together this season, it kind of makes for what would probably deserve to be the final, really, at this minute in time, with the two best teams in the country. And in fact, there's no dispute about that. They are the two best teams in the country now at this minute in time. So it'll be a real test, but one I think all of us should be looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching Brendan Rodgers just there before coming on, and in the press conference, he seems pretty relaxed, but also pretty confident without being arrogant about it. He was asked about the game 2 weeks ago, and Aberdeen obviously put up a good fight at Celtic Park, but he's been quite adamant on this. He said it a couple of times now. He says, yeah, all good, but we should have won. You know, we were 2-0 up, in control of the game, and it's one he feels that Celtic deserve to go and take the 3 points from. Where are you at yourself? Do you think the two sides over the piece are fairly evenly matched, or should Celtic come out on top of this one?
No, let's if all things being equal with the quality of players Celtic have got, we should be confident that we'll come out on top against anybody in the country. We give credit to Aberdeen, as we've done on many occasions now, and they deserve that. But they've got, they were nearly fighting relegation last year, so there's credit to the manager for changing it. But there's levels to the game, and yeah, in one-off games like this, it makes it maybe a bit more, I don't know the best way to explain it, but it might not be straightforward as it would normally be. We've seen that at Celtic Park, but maybe at Celtic Park, it's maybe a lesson for our players as well to know how this new Aberdeen setup really affects our game, and then we need to do our best to make sure it doesn't affect us in a way we lose the game. So we've got to just implement what we normally implement and take our chances, and I think we win the game.
Since we drew to each a couple of weeks back, Aberdeen have gone on to win their games while we've been doing the same. And of course, they beat Rangers at Pittodrie on Wednesday night there. I'm sure you've caught various highlights and clips from that. How impressed are you with what's going on? And I don't think we can underestimate the confidence that continuing to win games of football must bring.
That's it, though, mate. In sport in general, confidence is possibly the biggest element, alongside obviously talent and motivation and attitude. But I've seen incredibly good players lose their confidence and look very, very average at times. And on the contrary to that, we've seen very, very average players just go on a run of reaching peaks of their game that they've never reached before. And that's across the board at all levels of football. We've probably all had it ourselves playing. You go through a purple patch and then you're like, where did that disappear to after 20 minutes? So it's like, I just think that they're riding a crest of a wave. They've got to enjoy it. But we know through experience, and our players know through experience, and our manager knows through experience, that it's not always like that. And it's winning when it's not like that. That's the important bits, and that's what wins trophies. And that's where experience kicks in more than anything else, I think, over the course of a season. Without a shadow of a doubt, we should have enough to outdo Aberdeen.
We should do, but cup football, cup semi-finals can do funny things to players, so we'll see how it plays out. I think what you do have from Aberdeen, and I think potentially their biggest asset at this moment in time under Jimmy Thelin, out with the clear ability that several of the players have got, is a really buoyant team spirit. I think there's a great belief around the group. You can see that in the way they interact and engage after games when they're all celebrating and cheering along together. So there's something there. There's something there to be looking out for. But ultimately, there's no doubt that Celtic, under Brendan Rodgers, will have done all the necessary prep to make sure that we're aware and prepared for whatever Aberdeen bring. Let's get back to all things Celtic, Brydo. In terms of availability, the only two unavailable players are Luke McCowan. He's cup tied for this one, having played in the cup for Dundee. And Brendan Rodgers mentioned Odin Thiago Holm in his press conference, saying that he's got some issues with his calves, which I suppose clears that up, because in recent times we've seen nothing of him, and I think you and I discussed him just a game or two ago, and the fact that he's nowhere to be seen. But maybe he's struggling for fitness, and maybe he'll make his way back in at some point. That aside, there's a cliched good headache for the manager to have. He's got CCV back, centre half. He's got Callum McGregor back as a captain. He's got Adam Eder back and available up top. So there's lots of good options across the board. Is he going to shuffle the pack? He made 6 changes for the game during the week, so there's going to be some other changes in the back of that. But what generally do you think he's going to do?
I think what we'll see on Saturday is what Brendan Rodgers thinks is his best 11. I think with all those players available, we know that Calmack obviously hasn't played that much, but he's just this machine. So if he comes back in, that's not going to raise any suspicions to anything else. So I think it'll simply be whatever team he picks to start the game on Saturday is the team that Brendan Rodgers thinks is his best team. And I think it's possibly what I think our best team is as well, the one that I've certainly picked for the game. So there'll be changes obviously from the last game, clearly. And I think certain players will come in that have done well, and certain players that never really took their chance will probably just step to the side again and warm the bench for a while.
We'll get to the team just in a second, Brydo, but I'm very keen to hear what your best 11 is, and particularly what that looks like at centre half, and particularly what it looks like in terms of the midfield three, because there are genuine options in both those areas at this moment in time. Before we do so, I'd also like to encourage anyone watching on the live to chip in with their thoughts. Thanks to Born Celtic, Dice Celtic, to Gypsy King, to GJS1888, who's also just become a new member on the channel. Thanks for doing so. Let us know your thoughts and comments. Myself and Brydo will do our very best to get to them between now and around about 25 minutes from now. Brydo, I agree. I think Brendan Rodgers does go with his best 11. He was asked specifically about the selection headache during the press conference, and he says sentimentality doesn't come into it. So, a lot of folks will be saying Trusty's been great, but he might start, he might not, but he won't get it through sympathy because, you've done well, we'll keep you going, and various things like that. I think ultimately, as a top-level manager, you've got to be ruthless, pick the best players for any given occasion, and that's the objective here. So I agree. I think he goes with his strongest 11. Let's hear your strongest 11.
My strongest 11's, I'd like to think it's the same as lots of folk, but folk might differ. But Schmeichel's obviously the goalie, Johnson at right back. I think Ralston's kind of been a bit, not backwards, it's unfair, but he just seems to not be able to reach the level even that he got to. Don't know if he's maybe played too much for the international games and stuff like that, but Carter Vickers is an absolute must. The team are far inferior to what they are when compared to when he's there, and we've seen that over the number of goals we've conceded since he wasn't in. I don't think there's any argument there. To me, it's Liam Scales over Trusty. That partnership's been tried and tested now for a wee while, and I don't think anybody, we discussed it in one of the pre or post games in the last week or so, Scales hasn't done anything to not deserve the jersey, and Trusty hasn't done overly enough to grab it off him. So it's unfortunate for Trusty but it's a great thing as a Celtic fan. You've got a partnership and defenders there that are fighting for a jersey because they're doing well, not because somebody needs to drop out because they're conceding goals and they're giving goals away and they're giving fouls away and penalties. That's not the case. And I think Bai will get the jersey in at left back over Greg Taylor. You want the midfield as well just now, mate? You want the full booner here?
You just sit tight, you just relax. I know you're excited. I know you're going to
Hampden
tomorrow.
Carried away there. I was getting a bit carried away. It's a Friday.
Cup fever's got a hold of you. I think, I agree with you, right? I think it's AJ is a certainty at right back. Carter Vickers and Scales would be the centre half pairing for me, and Baye at left back. But I do understand and appreciate how some folks want to resort back to Greg Taylor. And some folks, Gypsy King in the comments here, he says, don't drop Trusty. He's starting to show his potential. He is showing his potential, but the flip to that is Liam Scales has shown it consistently for a season and a bit now, to be honest with you. And I just wonder if that's what the manager decides. Either way, I think most fans would be happy with either of Scales or Trusty, but he's got to pick one, and I do think he goes for Liam Scales here. What is it about Alex Baye, though, that makes you think he'll get the nod over Greg Taylor?
I just think we've got, based on the games that we see Aberdeen playing, Aberdeen are very, very comfortable in letting Celtic have the ball. and just like they let Rangers have the ball. I think we had 74% of the ball at Celtic Park. Rangers had 63% at Pittodrie. And that then means, I think, on the ball, Bhoys is a better option than Greg Taylor, certainly going forward. And in order to try and penetrate Aberdeen's kind of, they press from deep, if that makes sense. So they let us get so far, and then they try to suffocate us in the middle of the park. So I think overlaps and both wings and those combination plays out wide will be the key to beating them, to be honest with you. So Bhoys offers far more going forward than Greg Taylor does, and therefore, and he's come on to a game. Taylor's been out as well. It didn't look that great. It's difficult when they come in. You know, we can judge Greg Taylor when Maeda's in front of him. It's unfair to judge him when Palmer's in front of him. Two very different types of games for him. So you've got to take that into consideration too. So, but for me, Bhoys, he deserves it. He's came in, he's grabbed the jersey, and I don't think he's done anything anywhere near wrong. And in fact, contrary to that, he's done a lot of good. So for me, he gets the nod based on those facts.
I think he's quite an exciting player. He's clearly very talented, and it does look like he's got more going forward than defensively, but I think he also is quite tidy at the back when it comes to it. He's got good energy, he's got good levels, he seems to get around the pitch pretty well, and I like what I'm seeing from him. Now, Celtic, in the bigger picture, I've got a question mark as to what that position looks like next season. Greg Taylor might not be here, Alex Bhoys might not be here, so there is a question there, but I think at the moment, Bhoys shown enough to, I was going to say to retain his place. I know he didn't play during the week, but I think that was Brendan Rodgers giving several guys an opportunity, and I do think Bhoys comes back in. I completely agree with your point, though. I made the point on the post-match about, speaking to Paddy, about it's a wee bit unfair to judge Tony Ralston when instead of having Kuhn ahead of him, he's got Yang, and it's a wee bit harsh on Greg Taylor when instead of having Maeda and all the industry he brings, you've got Louis Palmer. But that's just the way it goes, Brydo. You know, you don't get opportunities for nothing at Celtic, and guys just need to make the most of it when they do. And before we move into midfield, there's a stat that I did mean to read out after the win against Dundee, and that Celtic haven't lost a midweek league game in 38 games, stretching all the way back to March 2015. I think they've won 34 and drawn 4 games. That's nearly a decade. That's incredible, isn't it? That's regardless. That's a variety of managers. That probably takes in the tail end of the Ronnie Dyler stuff right through the, to the present day. It's quite the number, isn't it?
It is. It must be something to do with those disco lights that we paid £2 million for that we seem to get slagged off. It must be to do with that. I just like to know who's these guys that just bring these crazy stats out. Like who goes away and looks at that and goes, when's the last time Celtic lost a game? Oh, do you know what? I'm going to go and look back, and then they go back 38 midweek games. That's pretty mad. And there'll be a lot of tough games here. Trips to Kilmarnock away from midweek, and Pittodrie, and all of the above. I think we've got a midweek trip to Pittodrie that'll put that stat to the test as well. I think we've got that in November maybe. So yeah, or December. So I think, it's impressive because the midweek games are normally the ones that offer something different under the lights. So yeah, I think it's an impressive start, but more impressive is the guy who found that out.
I'm glad to say the guy isn't me, but it's somebody from the BBC. I think they tweeted it out just after the game against Dundee. So some record and some going for the guy that did dig out that stat. Let's get back to the midfield. Callum McGregor returns. He was speaking to the press, but I've not managed to watch that one. But he will absolutely slot right back in. He's missed those last couple of games, as we know. I think it was an adductor issue, which is somewhere near the groin. And sensibly, he's rested that the last couple of games. But he'll 100% slot back in. And the question, as is always the case, at this moment in time, who partners him? So who's the two guys further ahead?
I've got Engels and Hatate. Just for the big moments and the big games. Bernardo has been doing well. Obviously, Luke McGowan can't play because he's cup tied. Incidentally, me and Paddy were doing the show the last time and we had him in the team, and then there was about 3 million messages telling us that he's cup tied. We're like, all right, calm down. Right, we made a mistake. Paddy deserves the sack for that because he was in charge. But yeah, to me, it's really between Hatate and Bernardo. And somebody can make an argument for Bernardo, and I would happily listen to it. But for me, it's a good balance, I think, with Hatate, Engels, and Callum McGregor in there. Hatate's, I think, just a bit better on the ball in the final third. I would say Bernardo maybe improved that, but Bernardo does have the kind of the legs and even the aggressive attitude, I suppose, to press and win the ball back. He's a bit gangly, isn't he? He can put his legs in there and he wins the ball back high up. So there's definitely positives for both. But for me, Hatate would just about get the nod just for what he can do with the ball, because I think Celtic will have a lot of it.
I think it's just about the right call. Had Luke McCowan been available, it's a different question, because I think he's standing up to be counted at this moment in time, as is Bernardo. I think Paulo Bernardo's done very little wrong this season since coming back permanently. I think he deputised pretty well for Callum McGregor in that deep line role. And he does have that flexibility that he can do both. He can sit as a number 6, he can get further forward as an 8, or even a 10 type of player. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, and we had this discussion recently, didn't we? I think if put on the spot, asking me who Celtic's best 3 are, it is Callum McGregor, it is Arnie Engels, and it is Rio Hatate. And actually, I think the same principles apply up front. I think there's 3 guys that are, by a distance, actually, Celtic's 3 best forwards. And I think it's Kyogo, despite his bad misses during the week, and there was a couple of howlers in there. That can happen to any top striker. But it's Kyogo, it's Nicholas Kuhn on the right, and it's Dice Maid on the left. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's becoming, when it's right, when there's really not much more to say rather than how good they've all been. Kyogo, he's got a lot of coupons to cash still, because what he's done over the years. He loves scoring at Hampden. His record at Hampden is pretty phenomenal, if I remember right. And never forget that the game against Hibs. I don't think the Hibs fans either. I think they're still celebrating just now. So yeah, I think just touching on like the players that are obviously competing against these guys. So Adamida, Bernardo with Hatate and the likes. It's horses for courses sometimes. So I do think that away in Europe, for example, I would pick Bernardo over Hatate, and I would pick Ida over Kyogo for the majority of the away games in Europe, just because of how I think we have to play in most of those games. So, but domestically, I think when you've got all of the ball, that movement from Kyogo, his sharpness, his movement, he's making space for other players. And I just think it's so important to how we play. If he's on it, Aberdeen don't stand a chance. It's pure and simple. If Kyogo is on fire, they do not stand a chance, because there's, like I said, there's levels to the game, and they don't have somebody of Kyogo's level, for sure, or Maida or Kuhn.
Yeah, do you know, Kyogo took a bit of stick for that miss, and I think he himself would be first to put the paws up, but I just think he's just one of those top-level strikers. He scores goals out of nothing, and I think you've mentioned something along the lines of credit in the bank. He's absolutely entitled to miss those chances. All good strikers miss chances. You've got to put yourself up there. You've got to make the movement. You've got to get in the positions to score in the first place. He does all of that. And if he misses some, then so be it. The guy's a goal machine. He's been so important to Celtic. Even as recently as 2 weeks ago against Aberdeen, he sets up the first goal for Hatate. He scores the second goal. There's some folks saying things like, he's out of sorts, he's down tools, he's all of these kind of things. Nonsense. I think what you've got at Celtic is goals from everywhere. You've got lots of goals from other areas of the park, least of all Alistair Johnson at this moment in time. But Celtic's wide guys, Kuhn and Maeda, can chip in. Any one of the midfielders, Kalmax had his share of goals this season. We know that Hatate and Engels have got goals in them, Bernardo too. There's goals all over the park. And sometimes when your strikers aren't scoring, people are like, oh, he's out of sorts, he's chucked it. Far from it. And actually, a lot of the good work that Kyogo does, it's his movement off the ball, which creates pockets of space for midfielders to drive into. So just because you're not scoring doesn't mean you're not doing your job as a Celtic forward. And I think we owe Kyogo a lot, and I think he is the man to retain that position for now. Nicholas Kuhn, Brydo, early shout just now. What are we? November? Jeez, we're in happy November. Nicholas Kuhn, though, has been given, loosely been entitled to call himself the best player in Scotland so far this season. And you'd been inclined to agree, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that in one of the post-game ones there, that we didn't really expect him to reach those levels. Like, we thought we'd have a player that would be, we're trying to replace like Jota. And, so the numbers of Abada, but the quality of Jota. And we didn't see that when he first turned up, and we were getting a bit nervous about that, thinking, what are we going to do here? The team is less than it was before. And I think what he's done, his speed is unbelievable. And when we are breaking at teams with Maeda on one side and Kuhn on the other, I think we've been crying out for that. We've all been saying, if we could have somebody like Maeda on the other side, and ultimately that's what we've got. I don't know if he's faster than Maeda or not. I think he's faster with the ball than Maeda, for sure. With dribbling, he's a faster. Maeda seems to just hit it, does the old toe poke it and then just run past guys, whereas Kuhn rarely loses it because the ball's so close to his feet. He lures players in. He keeps fullbacks thinking, is he going in behind? Is he dropping in deep? Is he tucking inside? Is he going to the byline? He consistently changes his play. And I think as Celtic fans, we've seen that on Wednesday night where it didn't happen in the first half. Yang and Palmer continuously just kept tucking inside. And the one time he did get to the byline, it was not a bad pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yang gets to the byline and he sets the goal up. I think actually messages just with one word, byline. And these two guys, and even if they don't, defenders drop so deep to try and stop them, they've got the space inside. So they're so important to what we're doing. The real concern is if something happens to any of them, because I don't think the replacements are anywhere near their level, for sure. But I don't think there's many arguments that he would be the best player in the country right now, by a reasonable distance.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. You asked about the pace between him and Maeda. I covered this at one point earlier in the week, but the stats are out from the Champions League, UEFA Champions League's website. And Kuhn is in the top 10, I think, in terms of pace, kind of sprints in the competition for the 3 games so far, ahead of Diaz and Maeda. So that, the proof's in the pudding there. Yeah. But it's one thing being fast. It's also been able to control the ball while you're doing it, and he seems to do both pretty well. And Diaz and Maeda, just a quick question. There has been a suggestion that he's a bit jaded. He was obviously putting in the miles again, as he always does when he travels with his country. And he's looked a wee bit out of sorts in the last game or two. Do you think that would have any bearing on the team selection?
No, not really, because the options are far inferior to what he is. So I don't think that comes into much consideration, really. I think it would be a case of, if it was to be jaded, for example, is he might just fade away? But I don't think it's that, mate, to be honest with you. I just think there's a wee bit of form that the player loses. It happens in every sport, it might not just click for him. He had a couple of chances when he came on Wednesday at the back post. He's still putting himself in at the back post for crosses from the right. He's still working his socks off. He's still closing down defenders. He's still a very, very important cog in the wheel. And without him, we are a very different side as well. I think he's just as important in the forward aspect of the importance to the team as Carter Vickers is at the defending side.
Yeah, and I actually think that in his time since returning to the club, as in Brendan Rodgers, he always picks Diaz Maeda. When there's any sort of big game, he picks Diaz Maeda. Brydo, some interesting comments come in. I can see you laughing at one already. Someone's asking if that's you on the back shift. Brydo's kindly taking time out from his busy business schedule to record here today. There's various other comments, so some good ones I want to highlight. First of all, hello to Jamie in New Zealand. Jamie says, hail from New Zealand, 6:12 in the morning here and looking forward to the game. That's dedication, Brydo. So hello to Jamie and thanks to him for joining us. A couple of folks agreeing spot on with your team predictions. So Colin Rogers has gone the exact same lineup, as has, let me see, Gio. They picked the exact same team as you, Brydo. And I think generally speaking, most fans are in agreement. Say again?
He's got Bernardo in. Gio's got Bernardo.
Bernardo. And that'll be the niggle, won't it? There's always that. I feel like I ask it every week, Bernardo or Hatate. But by and large, I think Celtic's 11, say 12, most of us are on board with. But to your point about the wingers, maybe when we have to go to reserve, particularly in that area of the park, the quality's not quite as high. We're not going to spend any time on Palma and Yang today, but they were very much the topic of discussion after the game during the week. Just while we wrap things up on Kyogo, Paul Andrew Martin says that he's a big Kyogo fan, but he did see a stat on Celtsar here saying that he's missed 33 chances or 33 big chances over 40 games. My pushback on that would be Kyogo puts himself in positions that other strikers don't. He creates so many chances with his movement. his movement is incredible, and I feel like I've been saying for 3 years now that if we could just find more of his runs, because he continues to make so many good runs that sometimes I think players lack the bravery of making the pass, and you see Kyogo kind of putting the hand up and kind of resetting and getting himself back into position. But he puts so much work in off the ball. I really don't mind him missing chances because he also scores chances. If he's missing and going, a dozen games without scoring, that's different. But by and large, Kyogo pops up in big games. He scored in big games against Rangers. He scored in cup finals. He scored in Champions League. I've no concern about Kyogo. There is always a possibility, Brydo, that this one goes the distance. It could go to extra time. It could go to penalties. We've seen that at Hampden last time out in the Scottish Cup semi-final. Do you think that's a possibility, or do you think Celtic will learn their lessons from last time out and get the job done in the 90?
I think Celtic get it done in the 90. I think Aberdeen extended a lot of effort as well on Wednesday. A big game for them. Good result for them. Great result for everybody in the whole world ever on the moon, the lot. So I think there's a part of that. I think Celtic have rested players. They go into the game and I think as ready as we could be, and as good as we could be. So I think I just think we've got too much for them in most areas of the park. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, they're very comfortable not having the ball. So we need to make sure we do what we have done and should be doing. And the point there about Kyogo missing chances, if that happens on Saturday and, we're restricted and he's maybe on that kind of form, that could put us in trouble because we don't know how many chances we'll get. I mean, we'll have a lot of the ball, but how many clear-cut chances can we create? And I think that's really important that we move the ball and play at a pace that Aberdeen struggle with.
Do you know what could be a huge factor there, just as you're talking through, is the fact that Aberdeen get a great result during the week. Players delighted, coaching staff delighted, fans delighted. The whole city seems to be buzzing, and I'm pretty pleased to see that. I know you've got an affinity with Aberdeen, having spent some time studying up there, but you can't discount the energy that would take from some of their players. I watched an interview after the game with Graham Shinney and is it Mikey Devlin?
Yep.
Both guys doing a big job for Aberdeen. But they're not kids. They're not young men. They're kind of top end of their career. And I think the rest and recovery is important. They make the journey to Glasgow to play in the big pitch. I'm just looking, if we're going with your starting 11, there's a bag of players that didn't start for Celtic during the week. Guys that were rested. Alistair Johnson, Liam Scales, Alex Baye, Callum McGregor, Reo Hatate, Nicholas Kuhn, Daisen Maeda. What's that? 7 guys who had the luxury of not starting during the week. And the fact that it's a short pop over to Hampden for these players as well. I think that there could be a freshness about Celtic. Now, don't get me wrong, Aberdeen will be really buzzed up for this. They come into it with huge confidence, and I think they'll be really looking forward to the game. And adrenaline will take you so far, but only so far. And at some point, they might start to fatigue. And I would argue that when Aberdeen do have to go to the bench, they don't have the strength and depth that Celtic can offer.
No, they don't, but they have strength and depth from Aberdeen's level. And they showed that actually against us. And they showed that against Rangers on Wednesday, and they showed it in other games when they've scored late goals. So they've obviously got a style, a fitness level, a desire, a will to not just accept a draw. That's the team spirit we talk about. These late goals don't happen by accident. When I look at the team that played against Celtic and I look at the team that played against Rangers, the differences were that Clarkson went out and Duke went in. Clarkson's a good player, finds himself on the bench. Duke's then in. They've got the boy Shane Morris, who is a very good player. Sockler didn't start against us. Nisbet did. Sockler comes on in the second half, produces a good. Nisbet didn't start, but he wasn't in the squad for the Rangers game. And they've got other kind of honest players like the boy Palversa and stuff like that. So I just think that the way Aberdeen play, they're very happy for us to do a lot of running in possession. So normally when you're out of ball or out of possession, you've got to do all the donkey work. But they're so tight and congested and they're so well organised that Celtic have got to do a lot of running to get those spaces and make the space and make it count. But when Aberdeen win the ball back, and this is really their style, Nielsen and Shinney protect that back four. See when they break, when they do win the ball and ultimately an attack fails, it's almost like there's no structure to it. They just go. and Devlin found himself
Yeah.
as a striker at times. I've seen a bit of coverage on that on BBC. But when they scored their goals, if you think about their second goal against Celtic, at the edge of the box there was like 4 or 5 players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Shinnie was one of them, and he was one of the deepest midfielders when they won the ball back on the kind of right back-ish area. They've got Keskinen, who just seems to be pretty tidy on the ball. McGrath, but they're tidy on the ball, but they work their socks off, and when they break, they've got a bit of quality. See McGrath's level of passes into Sockler for the first goal against us. When they scored the goal against Rangers, Devlin's goal, there was 5 players in the box.
Yeah.
You know, that's their right back scoring goals. Like, it was also in the box for their second goal. There's another 5 or 6 players there, so they put boys in the box ready to score goals. So we've got to watch what we're doing when we lose the ball.
There's a wee bit of Ange ball going on when it comes to that. They take the shackles off when they attack, and Mikey Devlin's the great example. He's an experienced right back who, generally speaking, over his career, I think, has just sat in at right back. Just defend your box, win your tackles, win your headers, and give it to other players. Now he's this marauding fullback, and I think, is it Jack McKenzie at left back? Is that what you call him?
Brilliant player.
Really good player. He's also got license to get up and join the attack there. But if those two are doing that, and Graham Shinnie, your deepest line midfielder, also finds himself in the edge of the box, therein lies the opportunity for Celtic to catch them on the counter. And I think Celtic have shown with the pace that we've got, namely Kuhn and Maeda, amongst others, we can break seriously quickly against, certain sides. And I think that on the big Hampden surface could be a huge advantage for us. It's going to make for a real interesting matchup, Brydo, and it should make for a good game of football as well. Celtic often come to these games and you might come up against, I don't know, like a St Johnstone Motherwell type team at this stage who would sit deep. And that's okay. That's their prerogative to sit deep if that's what they want. But teams would park the bus and maybe hope to take it to extra time. I don't think you're going to see that from Aberdeen. They'll go for it. We'll go for it. And it should make for a good game of football. Just a quick couple of responses. So Paul Maguire in the comments has asked just for the injury update. Don't know if Paul was late coming to the show, but everyone fit and good to go. Luke McCowan's cup tied for this one, and Odin Thiago home unavailable. But that aside, Ida, Calmac, Greg Taylor, CCV, all good to go. I need to also say hello to Melteg, who's coming over for the game. He's a Bodo Glimt fan. I've met him a couple of times. I think he likes to go for a pint in the Railway Tavern in Motherwell when he's over. But he's managed to grab himself a ticket for the semi-final, so it'll be great to see him at Hampden tomorrow. Before I get to Brydo for his scoreline prediction, I'd ask the same for anyone watching in the live. So if you want to let us know your final score at this moment in time, I'll read out a few just at the end of the piece. But I will come to you, Brydo. So 2 each last time out. Different competition, different venue this time around. How do you see it going?
I just see that Carter Vickers being there is a massive, massive plus. And I would say, I think Celtic will win 2-0. I think we can keep a clean sheet.
Simple as that?
I don't think it's as simple as that, to be honest with me. I just think that the way the game will go, we'll have a lot of the ball. And I just think that we'll take, there'll not be crazy amount of chances, but I think that we've got the quality to take enough of them to see the game through. Aberdeen might be 1-0 for a while, and Aberdeen to throw something at it. And then I think, like you said, when the spaces open up, that's perfect for the likes of Maeda and Kuhn. But I just see us having too much for Aberdeen as well as they've been playing. You're right, the Hampden surface is big. It's quite difficult for them to cover that ground. I just think it favours us a lot.
Yeah, I think in Celtic, particularly under Brendan Rodgers, I've got an exceptional record at Hampden. I don't know if he's lost there, Brydo, actually. Need to check that, but he's been there 13 times.
Myth will be having kittens if he hears you saying that.
He's been there 13 times, so he's doing something right. I think it'll be, as I say, a good old-fashioned cup tie. Couple of teams really going for it. I'm going to go 2-1 Celtic. I do think Aberdeen, at various points, will have a go, and I think they've got goals in them. So I think it'll be closer than some might predict. I'm going to go for 2-1. I'll go to the comments. So Born Celtic, Die Celtic. He's gone for 2 each Celtic to win it in extra time. Gio's gone 3-1 Celtic. GJS, new subscriber, he's gone for 3-0, and he's even gone for scorers. He's got an Arnie Engels double and Nicholas Kuhn. Shane O'Sullivan, all the way from Boston. Good to see you, Shane. Shane's going for 3-1. 3-1 for Paul Andrew Martin. 3-1 for Ronnie McLean. 3-0 Colin Sweeney. Lots of confident comments there, Brydo. But ultimately, and we can talk up Aberdeen, and we're right to do so, but these guys, ourselves included, you're right to be confident about Celtic domestically at this moment in time. Europe's a different challenge, and there's been some rough with the smooth and all that stuff there. But domestically, Celtic have been pretty dominant, and we're not just winning games, we're winning them impressively. So your final comments, Brydo, before we head to Hampden for this one.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. I think it'll be a really great game and a good occasion, a great occasion. I think the atmosphere will be electric. I think Celtic fans, we rise to the occasion. We'll be forgiven sometimes for going into these games expecting, to win by 2 or 3 goals. I think the closeness and the form of Aberdeen will keep us all honest with that. And it'll create an excitement because of the not being as sure as we normally are. But we need to remind everybody that, with our best team, I don't think anybody touches us in Scottish football. And I think we'll have far too much to offer on the park and from the bench as well.
Yeah, and as I say, overall, I think it's a cracker to look forward to. But here's hoping the Celtic we've seen so far this season can turn up and do the business. Thanks to Brydo for joining me all the way for his work on a Friday evening. Thanks as always to everyone that joins us in the live. Thanks for your various comments and questions, always really appreciated. And thanks to those who continue to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast. As mentioned earlier in the week, we'll be back with the post-match for this one on Sunday. So we'll update on socials in terms of the time. And hopefully we're talking about another big Celtic win. But until then, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the game. We'll see you soon.